Welcome, listeners, to the FTS in the Zoom podcast. I'm your host, Lawrence Yang. I'm a family doctor in Surrey. Today, I'm coming to you from the unceded traditional territories of the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee peoples here in Toronto. Where are you at, Sarah, today?
Thanks, Lawrence. Good morning, or afternoon, I guess it is now. It's particularly for you. I'm calling in today from the traditional territory of the Wasanich people of the Sayot, Sartlip, Sakem, and Pocatchin nations, where I have the honor of living with my family. The area is currently known as Brentwood Bay on Vancouver Island.
Wow, that's so cool. And, you reached out to me because I think we had some type of interaction on social media. I think it might have been LinkedIn. And I had mentioned something about a cosmic mission or something that I'm on. And I'm very active on social media, Facebook. I'm active on Instagram, active on LinkedIn, just because I really am trying to connect with a lot of folks and make change happen. I noticed when I was looking at your profile on LinkedIn that you've recently done a Tedx talk at Royal Roads University. Yeah.
Yeah. I had a great
Yeah.
opportunity to do that. It was great fun.
Tell us about the context of that. Like, how did you get asked to be on the stage in that situation?
Oh, well, thanks, Lawrence. You mentioned the words cosmic journey, and I think it was a bit fortuitous that I found myself there. I don't know, from a very young age, I've had this interest in being on stage. I was in plays as a kid.
Mm.
And then as I've gotten older, I've found myself wanting to share a message. Like, so when I was little, it was about getting into some other persona and trying to, I don't know, be the Wicked Witch of the West or be whoever the role was asking me to play. And then as I got a little bit older into healthcare, I found I have a story to tell. And like you, perhaps, and many others, we faced some challenges in our lives, like personal and professional. And I don't know about you, but I find sometimes people can be scared to share that story, like to really bring their authentic selves to the forefront. We've got this work persona we put on. Perhaps it's the doctor or the nurse, or I'm a nurse by background and a healthcare leader, and so it's like, okay, this is how I'm supposed to show up. And what I think we need a bit more in this world is for people to be vulnerable and say, look, like this is the hard stuff I faced and I continue to face, and to help people through it. And that's what I'm really inspired by in your social media posts, is you seem to be doing that, trying to pull out of people the authentic them and the why, the motivation, the drive to make things better, particularly in your quality improvement hat. And so anyway, I one day not long ago, I was speaking with some friends and colleagues about, how do I spread my reach? I've got an incredible role in the healthcare system. It's an incredible career I'm totally honored to be a part of. But how do I spread the reach around this message of like, you can do it. You've got everything you need within yourself to bring your best self to work. And we might just need to help you find that little, be the catalyst to help you find yourself and bring that out. And so anyway, I was saying, what, wouldn't that be cool if I could do a TEDx talk? And then I got an email one day from a friend and colleague who said, okay, you're on. There's a Royal Roads event that's a TEDx event, and I'm going to nominate you for that. And I was like, oh my gosh. Okay, so the nomination went in, and then I got an email from the TEDx event organizers saying, you've been nominated. I think you've got 2 weeks to submit a script and a kind of a resume and complete this online application form. So I did it. And sort of, I think there was that imposter syndrome in myself saying, who wants to listen to me? Like, who would want to hear what I've got to say? Anyway, I was fortunate enough to get an interview and do an audition. And so a group of people, I think there were of 130 or something like that applicants. They brought 20 of us in to do an interview and an audition. And I was fortunate enough to get one of the 9 spots to be a speaker on that night. So that's kind of what got me to the moment.
Wow. And it's probably going to be another couple of weeks before that recording comes out, right? I look forward
4
to seeing
months. Supposedly it can take a while for it to get online. Yeah. I'll make
Okay.
sure you get it though, Lawrence. I'm going to make sure you get it.
I'm sure you're going to post it and I'm going to watch it
Yeah.
for sure. You know,
Thank you.
I that resonates with me. Your story of, going through trials and suffering and personal growth, and then trying to accelerate or catalyze that growth in others. That really resonates with the mission that I'm on. I think I grew up with, as we all do, with quite a bit of shame or really a harsh inner critic. You know, so much of me going into medicine was trying to prove that I'm enough, or that trying to have a sense of worth or purpose in my life. And then I realized that, you know what I do in my work as a family doctor, it's holding space for people and allowing them to find their growth. It's not me like doing something magic and then making them better. It's them choosing to be better, and I'm just partnering with them in a relationship. I
Mm.
through that I found coaching. I found like the coaching practice, and one of my coach mentors is Cecile Andreas, who is out of Royal Roads
Mm.
University.
Awesome.
Yeah, do you know of her?
I only in name, and I've seen, seen bits and pieces about her. So but she sounds amazing.
She is, and I have the lucky blessing to work with her in the context of kind of coaching and mentoring for rural physicians. Um, I did some coaching training with the IHI as well.
Oh
And
yeah.
so some of my struggles coming up were the harsh inner critic, and then also developing my own anxieties around just being myself, and also, as you said, trying to be authentic, and then, you know, growing and maturing into someone who feels that they can be authentic and be vulnerable in the space. And at the same time, being vulnerable, also being excellent at whatever I want to do, and how those are not mutually exclusive, vulnerability and excellence. And so I'm
Ooh.
trying to spread that message because I know it's true. I know that we're all complex humans and that we have so much to contribute. And every time I see people in my circles where I work in healthcare, I see potential. And I see on your posts, you're always talking about the potential of people. And I'm like, hey, let's bring that potential, make it known, let people know what your skills and your talents are. Let's bring them to the team. Let's use them and collaborate and find the synergies. And so, yeah, that's a lot of the I don't know, the golden thread in my mission.
I love it, Lawrence. I love it. Your why, right? We talk about the why. It sounds like you've found that deeper that deeper driver, not the stuff that's on the surface. Like you said, going into healthcare, it's really all about doing the good and right thing for people and helping people on their journey. But when we find that inner motivator, that thing that's like really core to who we are and who we are as a human, as a son, a daughter, a family member, a wife, husband, mom, dad, that really helps us to find our resiliency
Mhm.
and to keep going in the face of the adversity. You mentioned a little bit about that inner critic, and I'm not sure if it resonates, but when I was a kid, I faced my share of bullies, and I think I thought I was a bit unique in that. As a kid looking out at the bullies, I didn't see other people necessarily that looked or felt like me. And then as I grew up, I think I still held that truth that, oh, I was hard done by, and I'm not safe to bring out who I am because, as maybe a quirky kid, I'm probably still a bit quirky, Lawrence. But I was quirky and different. And so then I learned that wasn't safe to bring myself out. I couldn't show the world that person. And now as I've gotten a little bit older and realized there are so many me's out there. There are so many people like me who met someone who told them that they weren't good enough, or even though I had this incredible support network, I was one of those fortunate people that had parents who were always there for me. They were the safe place, the leaping off point from which I could be myself.
Mhm.
But I still didn't always trust that. And now that I'm meeting other people and hearing their stories of challenge and seeing, wow, you know what? No, like I can stand strong in my power, knowing
Mhm.
that those experiences actually have helped me to be who I am, and I'm pretty proud of who I am. I'm not always proud of who I am. I still battle that inner critic, but no, I think that I'm more grateful and thankful for those experiences because I now have more to give as a result.
Mm.
But I don't know, does that resonate?
Yes, yeah, I don't know if this happens in nursing culture, but work has become such a big part of my life as it is
Yeah.
for many health workers. But in the medical field, it feels like a very repressive culture in medical culture, medical education culture. There's a lot of suppressing of the self, and then a lot of the elevation of the clinical evidence, like the ability to cite different research papers, the ability to have an internalized lexicon of all the different algorithms for guideline treatments of different disease processes. So it was a very like a hyper intellectualized and uh, academic environment, as it should be.
Yeah.
And there was oftentimes somewhat of a repression of the self and a repression of what I would describe as the some of the emotional, social, spiritual realities of being human, especially in the physicians themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it didn't always feel right to me. And yeah, so there's a little bit of a culture of suppression there, which may link to some types of I wouldn't call it outright bullying, but there is bullying definitely in
Yeah.
some parts of medical culture. But as you said, we get into medicine or healthcare in order to help folks.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that as I went on in my career, less and less people were talking specifically about helping people or feeling satisfied with how they were helping people.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt like people were defaulting to this is what the guidelines and the evidence says, and then and there would be a mismatch between what the patient actually desires in particular interactions and what was prioritized maybe by the health professionals or what the health professionals felt that they had control over in terms of their areas of work. I don't know, does that resonate with your experience in the nursing area or the leadership?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I remember being a student nurse and hearing nurses eat their young. That was the
Mm,
lingo. Nurses eat their young. And I thought, oh gosh, was that my experience? I would say that I had those experiences where I thought,
mm,
ooh, I'm not working with someone who's here to necessarily support me in my learning journey. But I met a lot of wonderful people too, who absolutely were there. But I
mm,
think that thread is it like, yeah, a competition piece? It's like how we're trained. So that's how we train others. I think that is a thread through many professions. So Lawrence, if you can think, I'm also hearing from you say that there's this challenge of holding the polarity of humility and self, the vulnerability of showing up as you in balance with that, who I perhaps am seen to, how am I supposed to show up as a physician, as a leader? And that resonates with me a lot, particularly like as a female. I find like, how do I show up with that humility and that leaderiness all in
mhm,
one? Because if I show up with too much humility, it's like, oh, am I weak? I'm not strong enough to be a leader.
mm,
Or if I show up with too much kind of confidence and that gravitas, will
mm,
people think, who does she think she is?
mhm,
And so there's a degree of that from when we're learners, right? We want to show up like, I've got this, I'm going to be okay. To like, I need to recognize I don't know I don't know anything yet. I still have so much to gain in terms of knowledge and experience. But what would you say kind of got you through or has helped you find that balance a little
mm.
bit more?
You know what? There have been a lot of different experiences. Part of it is my own spiritual journey, my own connection with Creator. My own. I grew up in a Catholic environment. My mom had me baptized as an infant, and some of that, a lot of the training and the education in a Catholic education, actually, even though it's a controversial religion with a lot of people who have a lot of problems with Catholicism, for me, it actually provided a structure within which to think. And I kind of
Mhm.
was able at an early age to kind of separate out religion and spirituality. quite readily, and that was helpful for me. And I really stuck to the spiritual side of it, and the realization and the choice to believe that the Creator is benevolent, and that the Creator has a desire for and to for humans to experience joy, and the desire for humans to experience connection and love and community. And that the faith in that paradigm, in that narrative, has helped me to, continue on through trials and tribulations of working in primary care, in healthcare,
Yeah.
and also the challenges of the complicated politics that we have in healthcare leadership. And then when I live out that faith that the Creator wants people to have joy and to be connected and to, I'm all of a sudden reminded by Avitas Donabedian's quote that quality improvement in healthcare is like reverse engineering love. So like in healthcare, what we're doing, we're trying to like get love delivered better. Right? In healthcare, we call it care, but it's really it's love, right?
Yeah.
That's when people feel cared for, they're feeling love. And when nurses feel compassion, satisfaction, it's because they delivered some love. And in the Christian theology, they have, love as eros, and they also have love as agape love. Agape love is the platonic love that's just pure love that has no wants, no selfish desires, no record of wrongs. The Corinthians 13:3 quotes. So those types of things really drive and they resonate with me. And there's resonance within the movement as well of, as you mentioned, humility, intellectual humility, and cultural humility. So these newish, for me at least, constructs and philosophies that are coming into healthcare are like lifting my spirits. They're like your intuitive sense of what is good is kind of coming into policy now, and that really excites me. And then of course I have my colleagues who are burnt out who look at those policies and just goes, man, that's just foo-foo bullshit. Why are we wasting our time with this stuff? And I'm like, no, this really resonates. This is what we need. We need this safety. And I think I'm an idealist, and I'm like attaching these policies to the ideals that I really believe in. And I believe that as healthcare leaders, as we build networks, as we build faith around these ideals, we can actually manifest them. We can actually bring the reality of these braver spaces into healthcare. And gosh, we need these. And so that's what kind of really drives me around that, and that's what gets me through, because there are leaders who are courageously standing with their ideals. They're voicing it. They're using voice, and they're connecting each other. So this thing here, this Canadian Health and Care Quality Improvement Network, it's something that the Doctors of BC was kind enough to say, hey, Lawrence, you seem really passionate about this stuff. We'll hook you up with Garrett Phoenix, who's he designs logos.
Right. Yeah.
Graphic illustrator. He made that, and then I turned into a Facebook group, and I have almost 1,000 Canadians on this Facebook group, and I share like different articles that really inspire me every day. It's called the Canadian Health and Care Quality Improvement Network. And then I have, we mentioned Synergy earlier. I got a chat group called the Synergy Hub, where I just pull in that's a British Columbia chat group. And we try to find synergies around different things. We got patient partners on there. We have doctors, nurses, other healthcare leaders, a few politicians. So yeah, that's what I've been flowing with lately.
So lots of things in there sounding really exciting, Lawrence. So you talked about faith. It sounds like that's a core element of who you are and how you show up in the world and what drives, perhaps your passions for quality improvement. I've heard about how that faith has kept you going, like through challenging times, and perhaps has been a catalyst for the development of these incredible groups, the thought leadership groups and advocacy groups. Where do you hope to take it? If you could say, if we speak specifically about the Canadian Health and care quality improvement, or maybe it's the two of them together combined, but what does success look like in terms of how you hope to kind of continue to bring your best self into it and supporting others?
Yeah, this is a question that everybody asks me, like, what is
Okay.
going to happen? And
Yeah.
there's this concept of emergence and of embracing emergence. You know,
Mhm.
the idea of emergence is that things are emerging, and
Mhm.
it's like out of complex systems. When you combine different things, it's like alchemy. Different things come out of this combination, and you cannot predict it. So I cannot predict what will come out of it. But what I know is that if I be a certain way as I do this, wonderful things will happen. And they have happened.
Mhm.
So as you can hear, there's almost 1,000 folks on this Facebook group. There's about 450 on this chat group right now. And as they connect, as they express and they broadcast their values, their paradigms, and their hopes and their dreams, people are connecting in the background and doing collaborations and doing things. There's patient partners on there. Shout out to Ovi, who's doing a lot of this. She's one of the patient partners on there, who's gathered patient partners together to, I don't know, support each other. And different physicians are connecting with each other on these groups who would normally not connect. And so it is a catalyst, it's a crucible of catalyzation. That's what's happening on there. And I don't need to control what goes on there. What I need to do is just be a certain way, and hopefully the resonance of the values that I'm putting out there will resonate with others and embolden them to live out their values. That's my hope. So there is nothing concrete about what
Yeah.
will happen out of here. I hope that connections and synergies and collaborations come out of it. But even if not, if it's just a network that increases one person's resilience, for me, that's a win. And I think that's already happened. So
You mentioned manifestation. I've been doing a bit of leaning into the topic lately, thinking about particularly as it with its linkage to resiliency. That in the post-pandemic world, I'm not sure about for you, but the kind of the heart of the pandemic was a time of great purpose for me and the people that I think I worked with. We came together in different ways. We
yeah.
worked with great synergy around a common purpose. We had a very clear mission to move people through this tricky time. And it was so fueling. It was so fueling, and it was amazing to see how when we all pull together, we can streamline our efficiencies to really make things happen faster and better and in a more collaborative fashion. And then as time has gone by, and can we say that we're through it? I don't know. My dad's got COVID right now, but then how we've come together has changed. And so I feel differently. I feel the resilience of myself and others dwindling. And so I did some research, like what is going to help us through this tricky time? What can I do as a leader to help my team? I mean, I've got to find my own resilience first, put your own oxygen mask on, and then we help others. And so doing a little bit of research into, well, I have faith as well. Well, I wasn't brought up in a organized religion as such, but my mom had significant faith and tried to and both parents really tried to instill in me that a belief that there's a greater power out here that's also helping hold us up, and to trust that good things will happen. And particularly if we show up as our best selves, that resonance you talked about, I think is like a magnet. And when we show up angry at the world or angry in our workplace, or, when I wake up in a bad mood, my family feels it. The team, the people I work with, they feel it. But if I wake up on the wrong side of the bed and think, okay, what am I grateful for? Boy, it shifts how I feel. It shifts I think my energy and how I show up with others. And then, so I do that practice, that kind of gratitude practice in the morning. And then the manifestation is really about that too, is, okay, how do I want to show up today? I will show up like this today. I'm going out on that Tedx stage. I will, as a perimenopausal woman, remember 1,529 words, Lawrence. That wasn't easy. I will be confident. I will, with my shaking hands as I was on the stage, I will get my message across in a way that resonates with the audience.
Mm,
And that's, that's like the every day is like, okay, what do I have to achieve today? I will achieve it. I
mm,
will do it in a way that helps people. And I'm going to make a mess of it sometimes. I truly do. But I'm going to show up in a way that is going to make magic happen. And when that happens, I'm like, oh my gosh, the gifts that seem to come to me, I don't want to expect them as a result of trying to show up with that, but it seems to happen
mm.
that good things truly seem to come my way when I show up in that fashion. And when I
Yeah.
slip into that expectation or, um, the follow that self-limiting belief, then
Mm,
I seem to lose my path. And
mm.
I don't feel the love and support of those around me in the same way.
Yeah.
It's such a tricky balance, isn't it?
It sounds like, Sarah, that you're opening yourself up to the best possible opportunities, and you're tuning your radar for good vibes. You're tuning your radar
Good
to be
vibes.
open to the good vibes, and you're believing, you're daring to believe that great things will happen, and you're opening yourself up to ride at that wavelength, and that resonates so much with an approach that I'm taking as well every day in my interactions. Um, I also heard in there, I will mess up, and that's okay. I'm hearing in there self-compassion too, which is we are
Mm.
human. Even though I'm on a cosmic mission, which sounds like
Yeah.
it sounds very heady and potentially to some maybe egotistical, but for me it's really, yeah, there's a recognition of common humanity. And I deeply believe that every person, no matter how grumpy they are today, no matter how harsh their words were to me yesterday or today or last year, they are they're a deep feeling humans who really want good to happen, and that's why they're in whatever work they're in. They're really trying to do their best, and they're hurting. There's a lot of people suffering and hurting, and they might be just expressing their hurt, and none of it is really about me. And what I can do is I can open myself up to that gratitude that you mentioned, and take that energy and ride at that vibe, at that wavelength, and then hopefully that will resonate and energize with other people, just as you said. And then and those who are suffering will eventually find the care and the self-care that they need, as you said, to take care of themselves first, and hopefully draw healthier boundaries so that they can be well, and then start to contribute more back to the community, as we're all trying to do. So yeah, those are some thoughts that are coming by as you mentioned that.
Well, it doesn't sound heady at all. It actually sounds full of heart, Lawrence.
Mm,
That you're right. It can sound. I hear you that I can see why people might think, oh, it's rather egotistical, but I challenge that. I don't think that at all. I think it's entirely full of heart. And what you're also saying is that when we encounter difficult conversations, which we do in this field every day, if not multiple times a day,
mm,
particularly as we're leading change, right? We're going to experience difficult conversations more than ever before. Just with the rate of change and innovation and new things coming, we're going to have to give feedback more than ever before. We're going to encounter frustrations because change can be tough. And so what I'm hearing from you is that you do your best to see that, you know what, most people show up with their best intentions. And do we always get it right? Are we always going to show up as our best selves? No. And very often, most often, when people show up with their talents out and their frustrated self at the forefront, it's not about us. There's something going on. And so if we can shift that kind of initial defensive reaction of, oh, you
mm,
know, I've been hurt or
mm,
attacked, to what's going on for the other person. I can my boundary, the boundary that I set up can actually be one of compassion and one of understanding, and to try and say what might be going on for the other person and how might I shift my instead of putting out my talents, kind of open the arms and say what's going
mm.
on.
Yeah, and healthcare is such a challenging space to work in, and it can easily take over a person's life as a physician or nurse.
Yeah.
You can sacrifice your home relationships, even your relationship with your children, for
Mhm.
for this work. And I've seen that over and over. And then when the relationships break up, I see my colleagues suffer so much because now all they have is work, and their relationships are broken, and their trust in life feels broken. They had
Mhm.
an expectation to live in love forever, and now they feel lonely when they go home, and they
Mhm.
expect some type of justice from the system that they're working with, the health system. Now they hope for good, at least I'll be a good doctor. That's going to keep
Oh,
me
yeah.
afloat. And then that's not possible because the system is not designed for great experiences. So you don't get the feedback loops that your patients had a great experience. Sometimes you don't even know that your patients had a good experience until they come back years later and tell
Yes.
you that they had a good experience. So
Yeah.
working in healthcare can be such a lonely time. And I recognize that that feeds into the attitudes
Mhm.
when we are trying to engage maybe physicians into healthcare improvement,
Mhm.
that the loneliness that health professionals experience in the silos where they work can be devastating. And it can be a lot of toxicity from their personal lives and in their professional lives. And then us expecting them to contribute in a effective or inspiring way may not be the appropriate thing at that time, right? And
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
that's why I was mentioning before we started recording that I've leaned into peer support workshops.
Mm,
And
great.
just this yesterday, 2 days ago, I was doing peer support workshops here in Queen's University for the family medicine program because I believe so much in the resilience that comes from networks. And so I'm trying to facilitate more and more networks of peer support because there's no one who gets it like a peer, right? Someone who's living
Mm, yeah.
and has that lived experience. And so, yeah, those are some of the thoughts some of the darker thoughts that are existing that are part of our realities. And that's some of the context that we're dealing with when we're
Yeah.
trying to lead change. When we're trying to be change agents, we can't only focus on the light. We have to focus on on the shadows in our culture too, and embrace those shadows and work together with.
And the patterns, I guess, would be you mentioned earlier on about the typical expectations, particularly of healthcare providers, and I would wager to say particularly physicians as you're going through your training. A friend and colleague of mine, Dr. Sarah Lee, I'm not sure if you've met Sarah, she was
Love
also
her.
a TEDx speaker, and her TEDx talk was all about physician resilience and how we can sort of recognize that we're taught as healthcare providers, particularly as physicians, to show up with this stoicism, to take
Mm,
it all on, to work multiple shifts in a
yeah,
row and take on call and just never take a day off and focus on work and family comes second. And that how and how our inability and perhaps the lack of making it okay to say, I need some help.
yeah,
And we need to role model that. We need to role model connection and the vulnerability that connection really takes for me to say, we have to say, I don't have it. I don't have the balance right.
yeah,
And then that somehow creates an environment where other people can say, it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to say, I don't have it right. I don't have the balance. I'm burnt out. And to help us kind of come together, wrap our arms around each other to get us through that and past that expectation.
hmm. In a culture where you do not feel safe enough to ask for
Mhm.
help, it is so lonely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What has helped in the past for you, Lawrence? Like what, because I think that that concept of loneliness comes up a lot, that we feel alone,
Mm.
even when we're not, even
Even
when
when
we're
we're
not.
not.
So what,
Yeah.
like, the world might be your
Mm,
friend group, your family, they might be there to support you. And
mm,
it can be difficult to support us as healthcare providers and leaders.
yeah.
People, a friend of mine said the other day, like it's intimidating to ask, "Are you okay?" Because if you're
Yeah.
not, then I'm really not okay. Or that. So anyway, how do you?
Yeah.
What helps you get past that loneliness?
For those of us who have internalized the narrative of like as you said, the stoicism, it reminds me of a teaching when I was going through medical school. Sir William Osler, who's like one of the most respected physicians from back in the day, he had this concept called equanimity, that we need to be for the patients, the calm in the storm of a patient's life,
Mhm.
and even at the expense of our own. And even at the expense of our authenticity, we have to be the calm in the storm. And that's what so many of us are doing as physicians. We're pretending that everything's okay in order to be that quote unquote okay for our patients. And some of that has to happen. We can't bring our challenges and emotions in a therapeutic space as we hold space for another. And it is absolutely possible to do that. And most physicians do that, and healers do that. They suppress their own challenges in that moment of healing. But you can't do that forever and not have your own healing spaces. And so you asked me what enables a more balanced or a more healing culture, or me to live in more healing culture. It is that getting comfort with the vulnerability, and the pathway there for me, and it's probably effective for most people, is the concept of self-compassion. So Dr. Kristen Neff's work on self-compassion, also meditation teachers work on self-compassion. Tara Brach comes to mind, Tarabrach. Also, Thich Nhat Hanh, he has stuff on self-compassion. Metta meditation, METTA meditation, is the name of the loving kindness meditation, where you say, may I be well, may I be free from suffering, may you be well, may you be free from suffering. So some of those mantras or prayers of reducing suffering, not only in the other, but in the self. And then recognizing and admitting and accepting that I'm suffering, that I'm suffering and that I do need help, that I'm not invulnerable, that my wellness depends on my connection to my community. That vulnerability, that humility is the key for me, that I think, and recognizing that I deserve to see a counselor, deserve therapy. It's not that I'm ashamed to see them. Like,
Yeah.
I don't deserve to have shame to be human, because to need help is to be human. And part of self-compassion is that common humanity, recognizing that I am part of that flawed the flawed common humanity, and that recognizing that part of self-compassion is suspending judgment of myself as I do that for others. I try not to judge others. I try not to judge myself. And then I try to talk to myself as a good friend might when really challenging things happen and I feel like it was all my fault.
Yeah.
I try to comfort myself with my internal dialogue. I counter that harsh inner critic, and that was my path, or is my path, towards, for me, connecting with my own healing and lightening my spirit so that I can be open to those higher vibrations, that to the gratitude,
Yeah.
choosing that lens for what are the strengths, what are the assets in my life, in my immediate environment right now, right? I think that links to what you mentioned as your morning practice of gratitude, as you're looking for the assets. Man, our medical cultures has made us hyper acutely aware of all the deficits. We look at systems, we see deficits. We look at human body physiological systems, we look for deficits. So training ourselves out of that is a very healing process.
There's a guy, his name's Jeffrey Allen. He teaches meditation and mindfulness as well. And he talks about the inner analyzer. And I like that. I like that idea that you kind of, if you close your eyes and imagine a dial in your brain, when you're feeling that, like, oh, my analyzer's turned way up. Okay. So close my eyes, or just imagine it sometimes in a meeting, and can't necessarily close my eyes and think, okay, I'm going to turn down that inner analyzer. And it's funny how like a little thought like that can really impact my whole body. Turn down that inner analyzer. So it sounds like you've got some good practices that you've adopted, learned, and put into practice on a regular basis to help you. If you could look back on your younger self, the Lawrence just entering medical school, the Lawrence just coming out of medical school, whatever stage in the game you think would be most helpful, what would you have told him? What would you have said? This is how you can help with that inner analyzer.
Yeah, I really love how you brought that up because essentially when I battle with anxiety, that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm leaning into my inner analyzer way too much. I'm hyper-analyzing everything.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
and part of that is that delusion that if I analyze everything, things will be
Oh,
okay, that I'll be safe because I have imagined all the
yes.
possible futures of this particular
Yeah.
choice. So anxiety is from the mind. And you
Yeah.
mentioned earlier that some of the things I said are resonate with your heart, or they're from the
Mhm.
heart space. And so
Mhm.
if I was to talk to young Lawrence, I would say, you know what? You have really developed. You've spent a lot of time developing your mind. You know, your
Mhm.
education, all your reading, all your
Yeah.
studiousness, but you have a very powerful engine here to your heart space, your
Mhm.
spirit, and allow yourself to drop into the spirit, the heart space more and more,
Yeah. Yeah.
and recognize the truth and the value that emanates from there, and
Mm.
often more so than here, and ensure that the analyzer is subjugated to the mission of the heart. Yeah, and just to find alignment there continuously, and to have compassion for yourself when you slip up. You know, so I would introduce the concept of self-compassion to young Lawrence, and I would also share with him that the the power of the heart space, and the heart the heart focused missions. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. There's a style of meditation called Vipassana, sometimes pronounced Vipassana,
Mm,
Vipassana, and
mm,
originally started as a Buddhist style meditation, but is now it's considered to be non-sectarian. And the concept is that things will change from moment to moment. There's no point in attaching ourselves to the future or the past because everything is constantly changing. You think
mhm,
about the body, the science of the body. The cells, they're always in movement. Things are always changing throughout the whole body. And so the style of meditation is to observe the body sensations as they change from moment to moment, stopping from the top of your head to the tip of your toes, and back up again.
mm,
And so similar to some of the other styles of meditation where it's really about having calm the mind, become a bit more aware of the heart, you become aware that pains and strains and tight bits, tight patches, maybe you got a bit of a sore shoulder. As you do that kind of sweep of the body, the discomfort changes. Sometimes it gets worse, sometimes it gets better, but it's never constant. And that helps me to kind of get out of that attachment
mm,
to how it should be.
mm,
Like in my mind, that mind piece of like, I'm so attached to, I've got to be a certain way.
mm.
Most physicians, I think you probably grew up bright, right? You grew up, this is how I have to show. I'm the smart guy. I'm the
Yeah.
smart guy. I will be the smartest guy in the room. I will be. And
Mm,
lo and behold, we meet people smarter than us, or we meet something where we don't know the answer. And that can breed all that anxiety. That inner analyzer gets turned up so high because we think, I should have known that. I should have done it right because I am the smart one.
mm,
So I like that. I like that Vipassana style meditation because it helps me to go, okay, I just have to observe. I don't even have to try and change it. I can
mhm,
I can I can put that control aside and just
mm.
observe, and it changes without me forcing it.
What you just said there, it links to what we discussed earlier of the emergence, like of the accepting of what is emerging. You know, like we do feel like we need to be the controllers and the masters of this system.
Mm.
We have that delusion that we could do that. Like,
Yeah.
and gosh darn it, we try to control the system. But it sounds like you're scanning, and you're appreciating the dynamism of the system, how it's constantly evolving and changing, just like our body is constantly evolving and changing. Like sensations come and go, and then nothing is forever. um, and when we delude ourselves into the fallacy of permanence of any of these
Mhm.
sensations, or states
Yeah.
within our systems, even a system of our body, or the system of particular ward on healthcare, that's always going to be a top quality. No, it won't, because the things are dynamic and people change. We cannot control the system. That's the truth.
Oh,
We can't control hardly ourselves.
yeah.
We cannot control or rescue another person. It is really in that embracing of the emergence that excellent teamwork happens, and that a leader's and primary job, and I've seen this in some of your posts, is about their self-care and then how they facilitate excellence to occur and manifest itself within teams. And that emergence principle, I think, it speaks to an openness to perceive excellent whenever it manifests in the system, knowing that it is not because of me that it's coming out, but because it's an innate part of human teams that excellence will emerge, and that we identify that excellence and then we show it to the others, and then it catalyzes further excellence. And that's at the basis of some of the network leadership concepts that I'm trying to follow as we grow some of these networks for quality improvement.
Sounds a bit like human systems dynamics. Lawrence, have you heard of
Yeah.
Glenda Yang-Yang's work, the HSD? And so when you think about, I mean, quality improvement in my mind and change are all about, particularly in healthcare, all about the complexity of the system we work in, and how looking at human systems dynamics can really help us to find the motivators, the catalysts for change, and how we can try and nudge the needle, even just 1 degree to try and move the system towards, improved quality improvement. And it's all about understanding how we as humans work, our inner motivators, the patterns within which we fall, or Oshry's work around those patterns. And so anyway, is that something, are those theories that you weave into your work?
Absolutely. I was so inspired to be some part of some of those morning meetings that Glenda and her team run. I learned a lot about team facilitation from Glenda and her team. Beautiful methodologies that she uses, and innate in the human systems dynamics approach is that belief and the faith that excellence is here, and we just need to bring it out. Like that's some of the key messaging that I took from her. You mentioned Oshry. What's
Oshry? Yeah, Oshry. Oh, I got to get his first name again. So he's also a theorist and looks at systems, human systems within which we work. One of his exercises that he teaches is about tops, middles, and bottoms, and how within a human system we often find ourselves falling in line with a certain role. You're the top, the CEO or the boss, or the leader, the vision setter, the hierarchy. And then you might be a middle, like a manager, a coordinator role. And then the bottoms would be that the front, for us, the front lines team, the people delivering care. Direct care stuff. And while the concept kind of rubbed me the wrong way when I first heard about it, like I don't associate myself as a top, middle, and bottom, and learned a little bit more about it. And actually, I do. I find myself every day identifying as perhaps one of those three. In a meeting, I might feel like the top. Okay, I'm the boss. I'm the vision setter here. Here's and the role that I embody when I identify myself in that position. And or the middle, like, okay, well, I'm squashed between. I'm in the sandwich of someone telling me what to do and having to then relay that message or that vision to the team I'm responsible for. And then as a bottom, I'm just the doer. I don't have any control. And then lo and behold, we underestimate our power within each one of those levels. And to see that the complexity of the system seems to funnel us into those boxes, and yet by owning our own limitations and saying, look, I'm actually imposing those limitations on myself. I can have more autonomy, more
Yeah.
And how then do I work within my system and try and look at it, see myself as more powerful within that system?
A funny narrative is coming to me as you're saying that. It's like hierarchy is a suggestion.
Yeah.
That's the narrative
Yes.
that's coming to me, and
Yeah.
that we could break out of our the constraining self identities that we've given ourselves at any moment within a system, and we can bridge vertical silos or horizontal silos whenever we want and have influence in change leadership wherever we are.
Hmm. I love the concept of the bridge. Can tell me more.
I think for me, bridging silos is like the example that really pertains to my life was I was in the silo of a community clinic, and occasionally I would bridge that silo by working in the hospital, seeing my own patients there. And that bridge became a relational bridge whereby, because of my relationships in the facility, I would be able to improve care for one of my patients that typically only sees me in the clinic. So
Mm.
by walking the bridges are all existing, but you just have to walk it. You have to choose to walk it. Uh, then you can gain the relational social capital or connections that will accelerate your learning. So your learning accelerates when you leave your silo and go into a different silo. You realize that your world is bigger than what your silo is, and that there are
Yes.
so many other sources of energy, sources of information, sources of just resource and network mapping. So by bridging another silo, like going into maybe health authority offices, then you get to learn, wow, there are so many more resources here. There's people who work on respectful workplace. There's people who work on physical and psychological safety. There's people who work in liberating structures. There's people who work in a whole bunch of things like that you would never have known if you had not decided to walk the bridge to that silo. And the silo is something that we put ourselves in. So I put myself into that original silo, and I chose to only see the walls of that silo. When
Yeah.
I made the courageous decision to go into the other silos, that's when the system became clear, and it became clear that nobody knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
that, and
Yeah.
that
We're all figuring it out.
we're all figuring it out together. And yeah, so that's what bridging the silos kind of means to me.
Yeah,
Mhm.
no, I love that. I love that because we can put ourselves into a box, not realizing that we have this, we have more influence, far more influence than we think we do.
Yeah.
And so what helps us to kind of get out of that box? And sometimes it's the language we use. Like how many times I've heard, well, if the health authority says we've got, like, who's the health authority? Is that is that me? Like,
Me, or is
is
that
that the
you?
CEO? Is it you? Like, no, like
Yeah.
okay, be honest. Is it someone specific who's told you to do that? Or is it this fabricated, structure that you've
Mhm.
imagined? And so how might you actually lean in and say, I can do a whole lot more than I'm giving myself credit for. And actually people are just waiting for you to do more. I mean, we've got structures and rules in place for a reason. I can't sign off a gazillion dollars and spend it all. Like there are structures in place to help us keep sustainable and safe.
Mhm.
But sometimes we assume there are these rules in place that are simply not there. Rules that we think
Yeah.
impose a boundary around what we can and cannot do as a leader, a formal and informal leader.
Yeah.
And if we
As you
just make those connections, reach out and ask questions. I mean, it was great to make a connection with you because, like, yeah, we don't have to just think about the teams within which we work. It's a whole system of people that if we make those connections, we can actually move things forward faster.
That's right. In quality improvement education, which I'm a part of as one of the faculty in Fraser Health, we talk about the concept of over optimizing one silo
Oh,
at the expense of destabilizing the system as a whole. And
oh,
that can definitely happen, and that happens all the time. And like we definitely optimize for the critical care unit, and we should,
yeah.
right? Yeah, but like that's one idea, and then we might de-optimize primary care in some cases. Like primary care may be de-optimized currently in the system all over. So that's
I'd agree.
So we've moved a lot of things, downstream where it should be, but how do we also invest upstream in a system, and and mindfulness around that, is as a system, overall systems steward, a resource steward, that becomes a really important thing, because other folks who are distressed in the system will come to your table as a system steward and ask for funding. And when you say, "Oh, sorry, I can't give you this much funding," they'll be like, "Look, I told you they didn't care." That's
Yeah.
you find the narratives that confirm the reason why you are distressed, right? There's that confirmation bias that will happen in clinicians, physicians, because they are already in distress, and they will look for things to confirm that nobody cares about them, right? That is something that I see frequently. And at the end of the day, it's us who has to care about us first, and then we do our healing, we heal our own traumas, and then we reapproach the system. That's my order of operations.
I agree. It's like if you think about buying a red car, then all of a sudden you see red cars everywhere. Right? It's like,
Mm.
oh, they're all around me. And I think we are programmed a bit to see the negative and to have that negative fill in the gaps of our story,
Mhm.
or to support the story that we have in our heads that everyone's out to get us.
Yeah, it's
Right.
an
That
easy
and
trap.
easy trap. And also to follow those previous patterns of behavior that we have for years, I think, over optimized acute care. And you and I both worked within multiple sections of the system, different sections, different areas of the system, from acute care to primary care. And it's fascinating to see that when we've made that courageous leap to invest in those upstream structures, community health services, the primary care pieces in particular, we have, and perhaps not necessarily disinvesting from the acute structures, but sometimes, right, if we just slide some of those resources towards the primary care piece, we actually reduce the impact. We decrease the burden on that acute care system. But gosh, it takes courage to make that leap, because we've needed it in the critical care and the acute care world. We have needed the investment there. But now that we're investing more than ever before in those structures outside of the acute care walls, we're seeing the upstream impact of that. And primary care, I think, is an area where the magic's going to happen there. Like, the foundation of healthcare is really in our ability to stay healthy before we even go in and approach a primary care provider. But by helping to build up that system, we seem to be seeing a healthier system all in.
Well, that's good. I'm glad that you're seeing it in your area. I don't know of the metrics in my area. Like I live and work in Surrey, and in Surrey, the poor guys at the ER, and the poor patients who are in the ER are there for a long time. It's really
Mm-hmm.
challenging. Yeah, the hospital seems inundated, and their population has grown so much.
Mm-hmm.
We don't really see an end to it. There's going to be another hospital built sometime in the next 9-10 years, and we don't even know if it's going to really do many things that need to be done. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of concern and worry, but as individuals, all we can do is just hope that the system leaders are looking at the metrics that matter and making good decisions. And we just gotta keep working, keep taking care of people, and see what happens.
See what happens. You think about, and I think for the hospitals in our area anyways, there's a growing number of those lower acuity patients accessing emergency departments for basically primary care. And so by creating more primary care access, in theory, and I think we're starting to see it in action, we're seeing the more of those people who have historically gone to emerge because that seemed like their only option. They're now getting access to primary care. So it reduces the
Nice.
amount of people going into emerge.
That's
So I do
fantastic.
think, but it took some courageous, it took the analyzing the data, but then it took that courageous decision making to say, we're going to go there.
That's fantastic. I heard from an anecdote from a colleague lately that in I can't remember which country it was, but that in order to get to the hospital ER, you need to go down a particular road that's just covered with
Oh
primary
yeah.
care offices.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a filter,
Are
and
you
they're
sure
like,
you need me? Are you sure you
you
need?
have
Yeah.
to be really, really sick to get into the ER. I thought, "Hey, that sounds like a great design." And yeah, it's funny. So,
Now, Lawrence, what inspired your journey into quality improvement, particularly your advocacy for quality improvement? Are
oh,
you
so-
clear on your why of that?
yeah, I think I'm clear. I burnt out working family practice the way that I was working it, which was way too much. I was overworked. I had a belief, I had a cognitive distortion that my job was to sacrifice my life for the wellness of my patients.
Yeah.
And so I would work 6, 7 days a week. I would be in the hospital every second day of the year. So 180 plus days every year I would be in the hospital because my call group was too small to have less time in the hospital. I tried to do what family physicians, some of them still do in like Chilliwack, British Columbia, or otherwise, where you see your own patients in the hospital. So that's what I was doing. And so I was just doing too much for one person. I got to the point where I was so bought into this, I have to do everything, that I built a shower in my clinic and I put a sleeping
Oh,
area. And there were some days where I slept in my clinic and woke up just to do the same thing over and over again. Of course, I became very unwell. So I became, about 5, 6 years into my practice, I started to develop autoimmune flares of psoriatic arthritis, and actual like pains in my joints and such, and a lot of rashes all over. And I was like, what is this
yeah.
about? I'm so young. I was only 34, 35 at the time, and I realized that I had fallen off any type of wellness course at all. I was just work, 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 try to save people, try to rescue people. And so my why of why leading to quality improvement is, when I was in that distress, I actually reached out to the CEO of the health authority, and it was a complaint. I was complaining about the quality of care at my hospital. How I felt like people just didn't care. I had that reductionist narrative. People just don't care. And of course, that is a judgmental narrative. And it's a narrative that does not appreciate the level of overwork and the distress of those who are taking care of people. So I was not well myself. I was very harsh inside to myself. And so I was so easily harsh and critical of others. And so I realized that I was sick. There was a toxicity in me from my lack of self-care and lack of self-compassion that I was putting outwards towards others. So much so that I would go to a CEO of a health authority at the time, Fraser Health, and let them know that there's something wrong here at this hospital.
Mhm.
And the CEO sent to me the VP of patient experience at the time, because my complaint was about patient experience, and that's indeed what it was about. And they said, "Hey, we have this new program coming out called the Physician Quality Improvement Program. Sounds like you're interested in improving quality improvement. Why don't you go and learn in this next cohort?" And the cohort there's 3 levels to the training. There's like the online course, and then there's like a 2-day in person, and then there's a 10-month, once a month meeting in person where you have a learning action project. So it's a pretty well designed and immersive learning experience where you get to work with colleagues from around the region. So I was able to enter into a new network of resilience as I learned. And I learned about the science of improvement, about how to run teams, how to facilitate meetings, how to choose metrics that matter for a particular improvement project, how to design and have theories of change, different methodologies for innovation. Liberating structures was part of our education. Coaching approaches was part of our education. So all of those skills in that next year really opened my eyes to, wow, I was just not skilled. I just did not have the framework of how to do quality improvement. And so I've become an advocate for that since then. And that was back in 2017. So we're 7 years out now. And I've not left the program. I try to keep
I'm staying.
bringing physicians in. I was like, you got to learn the science. This is the science of change. There's a little bit of change management, a little bit of project management. There's how to work better as teams, how to lead teams better. So all of that science was typically not available to clinicians, and empowering clinicians with this knowledge really increases their agency and increases their joy at work. The Physician Quality Improvement Program, we call it PQI, is a joy in work program. That's what it is.
Ooh.
It increases people's joy in work, and they get new perspectives on how change can happen better, how to collaborate better with non-physicians. It's a huge part of physician quality improvement. How to recognize the strengths in your system, how to map those assets for improvement, and how to partner with patients, which is not something that we are taught at all. I
No.
was, at least in my
Yeah.
residency 20 years ago. So. Mhm.
No, so it sounds like you were clear that you had a narrative that was a barrier, like a barrier to your own change. And now that you've been so involved in the PQI program, I'm sure you've talked to many other physicians and other people that have had to face their own barriers. Do you notice any trends, any barriers that are similar, or any that surprised you?
The most common barrier was the belief that nobody really cares, that nobody cares about the problems that I'm seeing in the system.
Mm-hmm.
And when they go through this training program, they realize that a lot of people care, but then a lot of people just, they're not collaborating. They might care, but they haven't done the team collaboration in order to make the changes where they need to be made. And I'll be more specific about that. It might be that maybe there's a lot of folks at the health authority who really want to improve primary care, but every time they come to a division of family practice table, for example, maybe the discussion is about complaints about historical problems.
Yeah.
15, 20 years ago we tried this and it didn't work.
Yeah.
Right, let's not even try it. So
Yeah.
their common issues are those narratives, and those narratives are trauma narratives. There's something
Mm-hmm.
bad happened before, and I need to be hyper vigilant and prevent the hurt from before happening again. So that is a common narrative that we can break through. That the people at the table now are different. The environment now is different. We have an opportunity to do something new. Like that that mind shift is common within physician quality improvement. That historical stuff is important. We learn from those, but we have a new opportunity now with new people, new energy, new resources. So that's a common one. Yeah.
Yeah, that resonates with me. In my role, I do quite a bit of partnering with physicians. In primary care in particular, that's a significant piece of my role, but also I've got some acute care responsibilities where partnering physicians is absolutely critical to improving efficiencies and quality and work experience. And I would say that I hear that a fair amount is, we're surprised you care. Yeah, Sarah, like as a healthcare administrator, I would
Mhm.
say that my perception is the health authorities are often seen as the big bad guy.
Yeah.
They're seen as the enemy. And
And you know what? It's not your guys' fault. Like by calling it authority, it's almost
authority,
like
right?
it's a colonizing title.
It
And
is. It
I have
is.
that problem with divisions of family practice too. I would rather they be called the collaboratives of family practice.
Ooh, yeah. Let's
And
make
maybe
it happen.
the health authority might be I don't know, what's a better name for health authority?
Just drop the authority part, and which I think
Health
some are moving, right? Fraser Health,
or yeah,
Island
or phrase
Health.
or health improvement,
Ooh,
regional health improvement team.
there
What
you
That's what
go.
you guys do. That's what you guys do. You're the regional health improvement team, health improvement and innovation team. Like that's
And innovation. Let's add that. I love it.
it.
So
Sorry,
I
I interrupted you. I
no,
apologize.
no, I love it. I love it. But you know, what you talked about was the role of empathy, I think, in understanding people's story and helping people to see the world differently. You know, that you said that it's different now. And when people say, I'm surprised, you know, like, oh, Sarah, you're not all administrators. You know, most administrators don't care. The administrators that I know, all of them care, right? They truly, truly do. And yet, something we're doing fills in that story that we don't. And you talked about that empathy of helping. What do you think if as what would be your advice to me as an administrator? I don't even think of myself as an administrator. I don't even really know what that means. What do I administrate? You know,
Mm.
I'm a leader. I'm a healthcare leader. I'm an innovator. All those things that you wanted to change the world of authority to. Let's change the world administration too. But what's the path towards empathy, or what's the path towards helping to change that dynamic between particularly physicians and the healthcare leaders?
This is the $1 million question. I
The
love it.
$1 million. We're going to
Yeah.
solve it, Lawrence. We'll solve it.
The number one thing is you must be proximate. Not all the time. You
Yeah.
must be proximate occasionally. And
Yeah.
what that means is, it doesn't mean coming by for 5 minutes and handing out pizzas. It means sit in the space,
Yeah.
and be with uh, as a partner, at least for a couple hours, for half a shift, with the teams that you work with, just listening, just being present, so that you can experience empathically the struggles and the challenges that the teams that you lead are working with. I think that is probably the best methodology. And I say this not because out of theory. I say this because this is what I hear my team saying.
Yeah.
The ER doctors at my hospital, the hospitalist physicians at the wards, the family doctors in the clinics. They say things like, if the CEO of the health authority came and sat with me for even more than 2 minutes, I would trust them, or then I would know that they really knew what I was dealing with. And I know that their capacity is limited in all of the health leaders, but some semblance of the being with is critical to leadership in health spaces.
And like you said, so tough. You think about these CEOs like Victoria Lee. How many people are in Fraser Health now? It's like 50,000 people or something for Fraser Health, like 30,000 with Island Health. Kathy McNeil that would take a lifetime to make her way around. But I agree with you. Like, there's the fueling moments for me are when I get to spend time with the people in my office on a Zoom. I mean, this is wonderful. I love spending time with you. But we do find ourselves in meetings in the workday, hours of, what I joke with my kids. They ask, well, what do you do, Mom? And like, I meet. I'm a meter. I meet with people. But when I can actually get out there and be with teams, oh, it's so fueling, and it goes a long way, as you've said, to the people that we support. I would say, to challenge it, there's such a power in storytelling and listening. And I think there's a perception that leaders need to listen more to the stories of the people. And in today's day and age, I think it has to go both ways. I think that we're all people playing different roles, and the job of the CEO or the leadership team, like right down to the frontline coordinators and supervisors, like, these are hard roles. They are, as you mentioned earlier, they are lonely roles. And gosh, people are doing their very best. And so when we take the time to listen to each other, and I could feel judgment, or I might feel like, they don't care. It's that Oshry top, middle, bottom piece. Like the top guy, they don't care. And then when you go and spend a few minutes in their shoes, you realize, hold on, they really care. They really care. And this is a hard job. This is such a tough job to make these decisions from that systems view. And I'm not sure if you found it in medicine, but in life, the more information we have, the harder it is to make a call. Yeah. The harder it is to make a decision, because now you know all possibilities, or maybe not all, but you know a lot more possibilities, right? When the information before you is tangible and within a box. We've only got that information to make a decision. Well, we're going to make the decision with the information we've got. And then all of a sudden you step into a different role with more scope, more expansive responsibility, and you have to learn more about the system. And then that decision gets even tougher, because now I have to balance the well-being of those people with those people. And the decision I make might be what appears to be the best, using the quintuple aim, if you will, different dimensions, or balanced scorecard, if you will, of we try and take all those data points into consideration. and we're going to make a call that looks terrible to someone somewhere in the system. And to the next guy, it's like, wow, they made the best decision. So that's I think, again, the polarity we hold is trying to make everybody happy while making decisions that sometimes feel bad for others. So I hope we can move into a space where that storytelling and listening can be broader than that one-way dimension that I think we've expected for a long time.
Yes, I hope so too. I think when someone is in distress, like maybe many physicians are right now, it is hard. They almost run out of empathic capacity.
Yes.
That's part of burnout, actually. That's part of the
Burnout.
definition. The depersonalization of burnout is
Yeah.
that our empathic capacity is diminished, at least a portion. So for someone who's in burnout to listen to a story and to feel empathy for someone who's not actually working in their context as a peer, it is challenging. It is challenging. We have to recognize that human challenge. And I think when you get to the leadership levels that yourself and the CEOs are in, I think it's not reasonable to expect, unfortunately, a lot of empathy from, and that's what makes it such a hard job. It's a thankless job. Like only your internal teams will really appreciate you. And I guess, I mean, that goes for any politician, anybody who's trying to lead on a large scale. It's a job which requires significant resilience and a very special personality and capabilities.
It does. It does. Well, not everybody wants to do it, but I think you're right about the burnout. The burnout is happening everywhere, right? What's the typical lifespan of not lifespan, but career span? That's the right word. How long are you in a role when you're in a CEO? It's typically not very long.
It's
And
4 to 8 years. I don't know.
yeah, somewhere in around there. Yeah. Or even most politicians, right? There's cycles probably for a reason. It can be very tough. And yet when I feel supported, when I hear that I'm cared for, it makes a difference to me. And so I would, if I could help the people that work within the teams that I'm responsible for feel my heart, like feel my care, I think it would make a difference.
It
And
does.
yet, right, it does. And sometimes that's what you're saying is just to come and spend a couple of minutes. And if we can't do that, what's the venue or what's the strategy to help people really feel the love? Because I've got it. Oh my gosh, it's just so deep, this desire to make it great for people. I feel that's my why is to help people, our team feel cared for, courageous, confident, their best selves, so that they can go and provide incredible care to the patients we serve. And perhaps that's, I think people say, oh, no, you should be caring about the patient. I do, but really my focus is to make sure that the care providers have got everything they need so that they can go out and rock it. And when I'm able to kind of get that message out there about my care and help, then I do think it makes a difference. Well, it does to me anyways, when I feel cared for and supported and seen, not even supported, that's loaded, isn't it? But seen and heard, they're going to make decisions that I don't like. But if I feel seen and heard, gosh, I'm going to pull hard to do what I can for the patients or the staff I'm supporting. So I think, how do we help people feel heard? What's the way to do it when we've got this, this cascading hierarchy where that N of one, the CEO or the board chair or the premier or wherever you want to stop it at the top? How do we help people feel seen and heard when that's the structure within which we work and live?
Yeah, you know what? You hit it. You hit the nail on the head. It really is about feeling seen and heard. So I think even though it is so challenging, I think as a visible leader, communication channels must be forged such that those that you lead can communicate to you. If it's by Twitter, if it's by email, if it's by X, sorry, it's not Twitter anymore. Something like that. And then even if you have an assistant, like this message is coming from an assistant, but I know about this, Lawrence. I am the CEO, and I really see how much suffering you're having. I can't fix this for you now authentically. I can't but I hear you and I see you. And when we meet next time, let's chat about this a little bit more. Like, I don't
Mhm.
know, something like that. Instead of being ignored or feeling like they don't want to hear me, or having a good representation of you as the leader and somebody else you could delegate to listen. I think that's typically how all leadership structures generally work. But yeah, some communication channel needs to be there.
I think you're right. You know what? Interestingly, Lawrence, um, I wonder about the impact of social media. So, I in probably January or so, I got on a journey of I've got this voice to share. I
Mm,
don't always feel like I have the influence I want to have, like in the roles that I'm in, and I've got a senior role, but it's interesting that yeah, I don't know how to describe it more than I just don't always feel like I've got the influence that I want to have.
mm,
And some of it is that about what we're just talking about, that people don't feel the support. They don't know who I am.
yeah.
How can they trust in who I am if they have no idea of what I'm all
Mm,
about? You know, the title or the person in the suit and the clicky heels, like that's what people see. They don't get to see and feel who I am as a human. And
I got,
so,
mhm.
oh yeah, go ahead.
No, no, you go ahead. I'm going to show you a slide that I used the other day because it's just what you're saying. So
Oh,
yeah,
good.
keep
Okay, can't
talking.
wait. So, so in January, I'm like, what's the what's the what's the method? What's the strategy for getting the words out, where people can start to see me as a human? And in healthcare, a lot of people use LinkedIn. They use Instagram for, I'm on Instagram. It's a little bit more intimidating for me. I have to figure that one out. I'm on X, but I don't tend to post very much there. And Facebook, I tend to use mostly for my personal stuff. But anyway, it's again, I'll foray in there at some point, on the more professional side. But with LinkedIn, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try being vulnerable and sharing my voice. And
Mm,
so I started to do it. I started with one post and, oh, interesting. Like people actually read it. You know, you can see that you can see how many people like it or how many views it
yeah.
got or whatever. I'm like, okay, I'll try it again. So the next week I posted something else and a little bit more about who I am. And the fall people started to follow or, you know, ask to become a connection. And I have people from all across the health system now connecting. And the thing I hear the most is thank you for showing your vulnerability.
Mm,
And gosh, that feels good. It feels good. And so it might not be, you know, people that I'm connected with don't necessarily, they're not all from my team, of course, they're from all over the place but if I can show them who I am as a person, and then I make a call that at work, they're like, I don't know what that's all about, but I have a sense of who Sarah is as a person. And so
mm.
I'm going to trust that a little bit more because otherwise I don't know how to get out who I am.
That's lovely. That is a fantastic approach. I think, yeah, kudos, Sarah. I think that's the way to go. Yeah, I've enjoyed your post as well. I think that's really the way
Thank
to
you.
go. What? Let me show you this slide,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and
And
then
wait.
we'll have a question for you. You can see that.
Now I can. Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah, it says this is MLK. MLK said people fail to get along because they fear each other. So
Yeah.
they don't trust each other. They fear each other, don't trust each other because they don't know each other. They don't know each other because they have not communicated with each other. So yeah, that was actually the slide that we opened up yesterday's session or 2 days ago. So with a peer
Ooh,
support program.
yeah.
And yeah, I think yeah. So you had this, you sensed that, and then so you decided to broadcast, uh, your heart out there, and that's really what you're doing. And I think that it starts with values. Like if there's values alignment, then there's trust, and the trust can stay for a long time.
Mm.
If the sense of the values broadcasting is authentic, that trust just it's very strong, very powerful. Yeah, so
Yeah,
nice
I
work.
like that. Oh, thank you. I think we have to be iterative, right? That's the whole thing with today, the strategies or the platforms we used in 2000 or even 2020
Yeah.
are totally different than the platforms that we're using today. I mean, ChatGPT is changing the face of how we communicate. I've seen some interesting, you know, advertisements on the new iteration of ChatGPT and uh, how they're trying to create this almost like a persona within ChatGPT. Maybe that's not how they describe it, but you feel this great deal of empathy from ChatGPT. Sometimes I
Yeah.
even like I'll ask it for suggestions around what to do around this, that, and the other. And if I don't like it, I feel almost some guilt about asking it to rephrase or reframe. Like, I'm sorry to ask again, ChatGPT, but can you try that again?
That's so
And
funny.
it's so, oh, no problem, Sarah. Happy to help you. And like, let me know if you need my help again. Oh gosh, Kane, it's only been 2 minutes, but I'm asking you again.
I love it. I love it. Remind me, Sarah, what is your title at Island
Island
Health? Yeah.
Health.
Yeah.
Okay, there's sort of a short form and a long form. Executive Director for Clinical Services Delivery is sort of the short form. And then the kind of the subline, if you will, would be primary care operations, community health services, long-term care, and community hospitals, South Island, Southern Gulf Islands, and primary care strategy for the health for Island Health. So I've got an operational role and a strategic role.
Holy shit, Sarah. That is a lot of that is a lot of stuff. That is a lot of stuff.
Oh, so it's a great systems lens, right? To look at it all from home to acute care and everything in between.
So is your workday typically like you receive like a ton of different reports and you have a dashboard that you're looking at? Is that what you do? Or I have no idea what you do.
What do I
I
do?
know you go to
I
meetings.
meet.
That's what you do.
I meet. There is certainly that component of looking at dashboards. But I would say that's probably less than it should be. There are dashboards and metrics to help me in my decision making. But a lot of it is around change leadership and meeting with people and trying to find the path forward through significant complexity. So there's the whack-a-mole of the daily fire that pops up, capacity at this site's like this, or there's too many people on this wait list, or we've got a human resource shortage, not enough docs in this emergency department, and on it goes. Those sorts of daily things that require some support when needed. So we've got incredibly strong teams. They try and navigate all those challenges in the moment, and then things would get escalated to me if they've exhausted almost everything, and now what? That's when it would come to me. But then there's change leadership around where do we want to go? There will be goals and objectives set by the ministry or our board or our senior leadership team, and goals and objectives set by the team that I'm responsible for, that I'm here to clear the barriers for them to be successful. So we work through a lot of big messy, the big messy stuff tends to come my way. And then there's a significant human mentorship component to it as well. I've got a team of people that that would be considered direct reports. And so there's making sure that they are growing as leaders and feel safe and supported as humans within the workspace. I love that part. Probably, it's probably one of the things I love the most, is the helping people become who they want to be. And I work in a dyad partnership. I've got a physician co-lead that I work very closely with, and her name is Dr. Leah McDonald. I'm not sure if you know Leah, but she's an incredible physician leader. And so I get to work very closely with her on where do we want to take primary care for the Island Health region, which is a big island and a whole series of small islands that are attached to it. Or not, I guess technically not attached, but you know what I mean, little islands. And so we support rural and remote communities and urban community of Victoria. We support primary care strategy in little tiny Indigenous nations and big broad cities and everything in between.
Wow, that is a lot, but it sounds like you've identified that your focus is really about helping your team members develop. Like that's like one of your top priorities, and I can see how you'd be doing a great job with everything that you've shared with us today.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you, Lawrence. Thank you.
How did you find yourself into leadership? How did you transition out of nursing into leadership?
It probably started way back. My mom was a nurse and she was in a leadership position. And I remember being at the mall with her when I was about 12 or so. And we were standing in the food court. And this is in Calgary, Alberta. And this, little old guy with a, kind of tattered jacket and cap comes up and says, you know, kind of called her out by name, Betty. And she looked at him like with this curious, yes, and I could see her trying to place him. And he said, you were the head nurse in the intensive care unit at the Rocky View, and you helped support me as my wife died in that intensive care unit. And I will never forget the way you supported me and my wife. And he cried, and she wrapped her arms around him like only my mom could, with just this like incredible love. And there they stood in the middle of the food court, you know, with tears in their eyes. And I, in my, you know, typical 12-year-old tweenness, the only thing I could think about is, I want to make people feel like that. I want to make people feel like that. And so as I got a little older, and watched my mom evolve in her career and change roles, and her last job was in an Alzheimer's facility, and it was a private care facility. And I would say she didn't feel loved and cared for by the people that she worked for. It was a tough job. It was as most healthcare positions are. And she really didn't, I watched as she kind of lost her hope and faith in healthcare. And unfortunately, a few months before she died, which was 2 months before I graduated from nursing school, she died in the middle of the night of a dissecting aortic aneurysm.
Wow.
And with no real, any prior health conditions, the coroner, when I spoke with the coroner after her death, obviously, she said, you know, I think a stressful day may have been a contributing factor to her death.
Mm.
And I thought, oh, gosh. So here I am, a nurse about to leap into the, you know, foray of my career. What am I going to do differently? And so that's when I thought, I'm going to make sure that I create healthy environments where people feel safe and supported, and that they can be their best selves and feel like they're bringing their best selves to work, and that they feel valued. So very soon after I graduated, within a few years, I had someone say, you know what, Sarah, you've got some leadership skills. Would you be interested in taking on this sort of supervisory role? And it just sort of emerged from there. I became a frontline supervisor and took some additional courses, was fortunate to take some courses, got into director roles, and did a master's of leadership through Royal Roads.
Mm.
And just continue to look for where I could have that kind of influence. Where can I help people feel supported through, and really change is one of the hardest things I think we face. So I seem to have this affinity for helping people through change.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can see how you're very accepting of people. Like I can see how you would make someone feel comfortable if they are really questioning themselves. If they're battling their harsh inner critic, I think you have that ability, and almost like you have a coaching approach to
oh,
helping them find different the questions that you posed for me, where I felt like they came from a coaching approach. And you know
thank you.
and what's interesting, one of the main teachers of quality improvement science, his name is William Edwards Demings, and he used to say, a leader is a coach. Like, and that's pretty much what he said. It's not about top down mandates. A leader is someone who fosters growth in those that they work with, and that sounds like your MO. That's how
Yeah.
you work.
Oh, thank you for that. That's feels like a big compliment. I really appreciate that. How about yourself? You've talked about your own role as a coach. How have you developed that? Or well, two
Mm.
things. One, what drives you towards that approach? And
Mm.
how have you developed your skill set in that area?
Yeah, so when I learned the quality improvement in the quality improvement curriculum, um, there was a particular section around leadership and around forms of intelligence. I think they call it Bloom's taxonomy of different
Yes.
types of intelligence. And in there's the kinesthetic intelligence that the gymnasts have, like the physical intelligence, and there's also the uh, kind of the intellectual capacity. And then there's the emotional, or they call it the affective side of intelligence. And I recognize that I seem to have a natural inclination towards the affective side. So
Mm.
understanding of emotions and the the ability to label emotions is something that
Mm.
comes kind of easily to me. I think that comes from growing up as a really like very introverted, growing up very introverted, and
Hey.
just like almost being selectively mute as a child. So uh, so definitely neurodivergence plays a lot into everything that we're discussing here about me. Like I think
Hey.
you may be neurodivergent too. I think we're all
Yeah,
on the spectrum somewhere.
absolutely.
But I recognize that I'm very privileged. Maybe you're very privileged in how we're able to function and fit in society. And um, so yeah, so I found seeing that was one of my strengths, and then one of my mentors at the time, Dr. Kurt Smetcher, he was an anesthetist in Abbotsford at the time. He was the one who started the physician quality improvement program and created the first curriculum. He identified and encouraged me to take the coaching training courses. So one of them was some coaching in lean systems from lean.org. And then the other one was the Institute of Healthcare Improvement's QI coaching course, so quality improvement coaching. So I actually did some residencies in Boston for that course and some online stuff there too. And I loved it. When I went through the coaching, I was like, this is for me. You know, this
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
it's non-directive. It doesn't tell people what to do. It partners with people. It recognizes strengths. It's all about finding assets, and it's all about holding space for another to discover excellent new ways of doing things. And it's a space. It's like holding space for innovation. And I was like, whoa, this is really inspiring. I love it. I went on to do other coaching courses. There's a group called the Thought Architects out of Alberta. You might know them.
I've
Yeah,
heard of them. Yeah, I'm writing it
Thought
down.
Architects. One of their leaders at the time, and it still is Margie Sills Mayrov, uh,
Ooh.
from Calgary. And Margie is she's brilliant. And so I did some coaching training with her group as well. It was called cognitive coaching there, and it came out of the education. Um, like education system developed a coaching program for teachers to be better coaches of themselves, of each other, and of teachers to become better coaches of their students, and how to ensure that we're not putting too much of ourselves, that we're really holding space for the other, that we're not going into autobiography, not just telling like a whole bunch of our own stories as I'm doing now, in
I love
a,
it. Carry on. I love it.
in a coaching context in order to allow other people to come up with their own stories. One of the things that I learned from that course was that a coach is like an accessory prefrontal cortex. And
Ooh.
as a
I'm
neuroscience
writing all this
geek,
down. So you
as a
know.
neuroscience geek, an accessory prefrontal cortex sounded pretty cool to me. I was like,
Yeah.
I can be somebody's prefrontal cortex for a little while. Like, so I pretty much, right,
Cool.
it's the problem solving part of the brain, and it helps, it's just holding space for others. So yeah, so those are some of the things that really resonated with me about coaching, and it is about reading the distress. And invariably, when I coach around quality improvement, there is always some form of distress, and the distress is about the particular person I'm coaching is trying to realize an idealized quality in the care that they deliver with their teams that they cannot achieve. And there's actually significant existential distress about living in a system where they can never achieve that. And so the fact that I have scientific tools and approaches that they can now adopt and apply to try to get closer to that, that gives me a lot of satisfaction as a QI coach.
Wow, that is exciting. So all these different tools, and I'm learning so much here today. So I've got a whole page of stuff I've written down. Are there any tools you lean on the most in your work? Or is it like a
Oh,
tool belt? You just you bring them all out at one time or another.
yeah, you bring that. Yeah, the one I definitely lean on, like when I go into a coaching conversation, I recognize my job is to listen. So yeah,
Okay.
I typically use the 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle when I'm listening to. If I'm talking more than 20% of the time, I'm not doing coaching anymore. I'm doing advising. Yeah, so I'm doing
Okay.
advising or I'm mentoring now. I'm no longer coaching. So
Okay.
so recognize that. Um, when I'm coaching, I'm really the question that you asked early in this interview was, what does success look like? That
Mhm.
is a very powerful question for coaching, and it allows people to imagine, to go into that uh, unconstrained, non-constrained space, that unlocked space where they can really start to visualize what could happen. And once we've painted that out with a lot of resolution, then we can decide on the building blocks to get there. So, um, yeah, that's definitely one of my favorite questions.
Mm.
But
I love
yeah,
it.
there's
I
a lot.
love it. Do you have any, where to next, Lawrence? Like
Mm,
you're involved in so many cool initiatives. I mean, the IHI on its own is doing so many neat things.
mhm.
Is there anything where you're like, you know what, this is something I want to learn or get involved with?
Yeah, so speaking of the IHI, I've applied along with Christina Kraus and Hussein Kanji, who's my co-lead in the Physician Quality Improvement Alumni Network, to do some joy in work workshops for this December's ISHI forum. I don't know if we'll get accepted,
Wow.
but if we do, it's going to be amazing because I've I've also done some wellness training as well as a family doctor, primary care physician, trying to work on that preventative holistic space. So some self-reflection elements to the workshop, some boundary setting in the workshop to kind of preserve our own empathy, our own capacity to lead change. And then we have some leadership principles in there, compassionate leadership out of the King's Fund from the UK that we're bringing in, and then also some like, let's look at what the pebbles in your shoe are, and then how do we form teams around that to reduce those frustrations, and then how do we measure to show that you're making an improvement. So that I'm really excited about the Joy and Work workshops, and I've been running them in Fraser Health for past couple months, and they've been going very well. So yeah.
Wow. I can't wait to hear more about that. That sounds right up my alley. And yeah, congratulations. I really hope you get to that IHI conference. It's supposed to be an incredible conference. I've not been yet. It's on my wish list.
Oh
But
man, I hope you can go. Hopefully you can find some money and time, and it's
yeah,
only
make it happen.
3 days. I mean,
3 days, 3 days. Yeah. But the Joy and Work workshops, that sounds really amazing. Amazing. Well, yeah,
yeah.
best of luck with it.
Thank you, Dr. Sarah Leah, and her friend Dr. Alicia Powers, and maybe Jenny Aiken and them. They're doing some wonderful stuff on the island as well around wellness,
Right.
really focusing on the capacity and the resilience within the health providers out there. So I'm a big fan of them and their work too.
Oh yeah, they are amazing. They are an amazing, yeah, amazing group of powerful women, and yeah,
Mhm.
with that strong focus on, like you said, resilience and burnout, and how do we help people come back from burnout, like prevent burnout, but
Yeah.
got a lot of people we need to help find their way back, and so
Mhm.
I believe in what they're doing.
As we wrap up our conversation today, is there anything that you would like to share with the audience? Anything that you're working on, or anything that you think might be helpful?
Oh gosh, that's a big question. Watch out for my TEDx talk.
Yes.
The whole point is the idea worth spreading. And while it was, my first go at something that I'm more comfortable in, like a facilitative type of, or like a dialogue where I can really interact. You'll probably see um parts where I'm like, oh, the audience laughed. Okay, great. That I get to interact. But nonetheless, so I'm very excited to kind of get the message out there and learn more as people kind of bring their ideas and their impressions of what my message was. So I hope people will not only watch it but engage with me about it, what it meant to them, if anything, but particularly around their takeaways. So I hope you will too, Lawrence. And any other opportunities to be involved in this type of work. You and I were in at Quality Forum, and we were sitting next to um, drat, Stephen Lewis.
Oh, love him.
Oh my gosh. And he was like, he was talking about innovation in primary care and challenging us to think differently. And I immediately thought, I think I said something like, I like you, not knowing it was who he was. And you chimed up and you're like, the famous Stephen Lewis. I
Yes.
thought, I like that guy too.
I didn't realize it was you who said that. I remember you, yeah, you saying I like you. Yeah, that's funny. I didn't
And
realize
so
that was you. Yeah, I was like, Stephen Lewis in the house. He's amazing. I'm sad that he's kind of retiring from his quality farm role, but he's a
what
fantastic.
a
And if anybody needs some consulting, check out Stephen Lewis. Yeah.
Well, yeah, so that's kind of my ask is where there are wonderful people getting together to talk about this type of stuff, I'd love to be involved, Lauren. So if you or your listeners are like, you know what, we want to work on helping people to really feel like their best selves, that courageous, confident person leading or informally or formally in through change. I want to be a part of it. So thank you again. It's such an honor to be welcomed onto your stage like this. I just truly, truly loved it and really appreciated getting to know you a little bit better in the process. You're an incredibly inspiring person and thank you and best of luck. I can't wait to hear more.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor to be with you. Thank you for being proximate with me here in the Zoom. It's an honor, and your authenticity, your care, your love is coming across really strong. And yeah, I see you as an ally in this health system improvement. Thank you for doing what you're doing.
Back at you, Will Arns. Thank you.